Imagine feeling like a suicidal victim when your marriage breaks up and your husband very soon moves on with someone else. Yet going from that pain to the place where you get your life together, remarry, and then end up divorced again. But from that place, moving into your power, starting your own business, and writing a book called Thank God He's Gone. That's the story of my guest today, from victim to empowered CEO of her own coaching and EFT tapping company in Australia, and now calling herself the sassy single from Sydney. Listen to the end for the first time she has ever shared her secret hobby of writing erotic novels, which, as you will hear, might one day see the light of day. Hello and welcome to the Write the Book Inside You podcast. Tips, tools and interviews for coaches and healers like you who want to write a non-fiction book to boost your visibility, clients and cash flow while making a difference. I'm your host, Carol Westmore, a multi-published author and energy psychology tapping book coach. Now let's jump into today's episode. My guest today is Lorna Hollinger, a sassy Sydney gal and author of best-selling book, Thank God He's Gone, The Smart Woman's Guide to Getting Back Your Personal Power and Reclaiming Your Confidence, which we will be chatting about, along with a topic close to my heart, EFT tapping and how it can change your life. I'll be asking Lorna about how a twice-divorced mother of two can create an enviable life as CEO of the multi-award-winning business Australian Tapping Institute, which offers online training and courses in being both an EFT practitioner and a coach. She holds diplomas in life coaching and business management, master practitioner certifications in emotional freedom techniques, and neuro-linguistic programming. She's a regular guest on Australian and international podcasts and in the media. So welcome, Lorna.
Hello, Carol. Lovely to see you again.
So you from down under and I'm in South Africa, but it's just like we pals just having a good conversation, and we're going to
Absolutely.
I'm going to find out a bit more about you that will help my listeners improve their lives and become more confident and sassy. I like that.
And I'm actually Scottish born.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Lorna, can you take me back to the moment where you were at your low point, obviously sometime before writing your book and changing your life?
Absolutely. I was a divorced mum. I had two gorgeous sons, and I'm not exactly sure how I got to the bottom, but the bottom was pretty scary. It was probably my first dark night of the soul. I had no idea what that meant. All I knew was that I was plotting my own suicide. I'm a planner and a plotter, and I had out a book and I was writing it out. Every time my kids went to their dad's place, I would plan this suicide. I mean, when you think about it now, it was like, clearly I wasn't going to do it, but I just had to plan to be doing something. And I would get to a point and I'd go, you know what? He's so unreliable. He won't do it the way I've written it in my plan. I'll have to do it differently. And it was just a period of time that I went through that I just was so angry. I remember being angry, and I would go for long walks in this sort of park near my house. It was in amongst the trees and the bushland, and it was dark and scary. And my dad would say to me, "You really need to be careful walking there. You're in the dark at night." And I'd go, "Really? You think anyone's coming near me?" And he'd just go, "Yeah, you're probably right."
Okay, and that had been because of your departing from your first marriage, am I right? You were angry about the circumstances, which actually you describe in your book. I think it was a moment of betrayal. Tell me, take us back even further to what had made you so angry.
I called the divorce. I called the split and said, "Look, I think I'm very unhappy. I think maybe we need a divorce." And he said, "Oh, okay then. Yeah, all right, not a problem." I'm like, hang on a minute. That was a little bit too easy. What I said was I wanted a divorce. What I wanted was for him to fight for us, to make it worthwhile, to do something that made it worthwhile and to make it worth having. I called it on the Tuesday. He met her at Thursday in the same company they worked for, the same building, the same everything, and they miraculously met at a Christmas party 2 days later. Fell in love fairly quickly and wanted to get married. Like, what a miracle that was. So the fact that my whole divorce settlement, children, the custody, everything had a third person in it, was them against me. So there was very much this victimhood. I was a reasonably stay-at-home mum. He was a corporate guy with a huge income. He decided paying maintenance wasn't for him. They just wanted to control everything. And I really, if I can be so bold, my second husband referred to it as the day my balls dropped and I took control of my life and started to stand up to my first husband for the first time. Until then, I had just been a doormat and a victim, and he just walked all over me.
When you had a turning point, what was, I call them ahas, what was the day that was to lead you to a new, different life?
I had a friend who came to visit and she said, I think you're suffering depression. And I'm like, I don't think I am. She said, I think you are, and took me to a doctor. From there, she supported me, and then other women supported me, and I seemed to collect these people who seemed to care about me. By this stage, I need to add, my mum had died when I was 18. My mum died. I had a brother and a dad. My dad went to the pub. I don't know where my brother went to. So I was very alone from a very young age. Immigrant to Australia, no aunts, no uncles, no family, no nothing. So suddenly these women I met would come and help, and they wanted to support me and talk to me. And it was like this sisterhood just started. And it was my first time that I had ever felt that level of somebody cared enough about me to want to help me or to support me or even to just listen to me, because I hadn't had any of that.
I think you mentioned in your book that you did do extremely long periods of therapy, but it was probably talk therapy, because we're going to get on to how energy psychology could have handled this differently for you, as you say in your book.
My therapy was probably more traumatic than my separation. I paid the woman 20-something years ago, I paid her $100 an hour, and I talked at her, and she just went, and I got angrier and angrier and angrier. And it wasn't until probably 9 or 10 years later, I had a girlfriend who used to come to me at work, and she'd say, can I tell you about my weekend? And I didn't realize then I was coaching her. Have you tried this? Have you thought of that? How come we're here again? Why are you thinking that way? And she started on, maybe you need to be a coach. I thought, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means. So it wasn't until 2009 when this person said, you should be a coach. And I investigated and went, I'll help all these other people. How wonderful am I? I hadn't realized how much of that was going to be personal development, self-improvement, looking at your own blind spots.
How long after the first divorce was that? I mean, is it 5 years?
This is 9 years. In the meantime, I've met another man, and I travel to Northern Ireland to live for a year, and I spend a year over there, and he comes to Australia with us, and we eventually get married. A year or so after we get married, I then start on this development journey, this coaching journey, this finding my very first self-development book, which is a Dr. Phil McGraw book from, Dr. Phil on TV. And that sort of started, but it really was not till I got to coaching and thinking arrogantly I was just going to help everyone. I didn't realize how much it was going to be. I had to face my own stuff. And that's when I realized I was a victim. That's when I realized how much I was blaming them and blaming him and not taking responsibility for the parts that I played in every part of my life. So
that was a pivotal moment for you, at which
massively,
which comes up,
which inevitably crumbled my marriage, because, as we know, women who grow and their partners don't, the gap just gets wider. The gap between you and your partner just grows.
So until then, you had really looked to another partnership to validate you, and then the time came when you realized. I think I like the saying you've got in your book, you'll never be alone when you make friends with the person in the mirror. And I think
absolutely
that symbolizes what you teach and what happened to you. You realize you had to befriend yourself. It's something we all actually come to realize when we're on this growth journey as we blossom, is that no one is there to rescue us, but we can be our own best friend and rescuer.
And it's sad for us to abdicate that responsibility to that other person, because when I think back of my second husband, his capacity to deal with his own stuff and then me laying over my problems and my expectations that he will make me happy, he's flat out making himself happy.
Yes.
But we seem to do that in these unhealed relationships. We expect the other person to deliver what we need. They're flat out delivering it for themselves.
I'm guessing that although your bio and on your Amazon page says that you're a sassy single Sydney girl, that maybe one day you will go into another relationship, but how would you handle it differently, knowing what you know and based on what you've written in your book?
It has been a conscious effort since my father passed over in 2018. Once he went, there was this conscious decision to heal my masculine wounds, very much focus on what they did, who did what, when they did what, the fact that they never did anything to me, and really going to therapy. I was already an EFT practitioner by then. Thankfully, I'm surrounded by people who are fabulous at this modality, but I could plug into them and actually do the work on healing, digging deep. Where does it come from? Where did it happen? What are my thoughts? And really heal the masculine wounds. So I know that any relationship I go into will be considerably different to what I've already had, because it's really been a conscious effort to be a better woman, to show up as a better woman, and not for them, but for me, to attract a more conscious man, to attract someone who's doing his work, done some work, and can think differently.
Yeah. I really relate to that because, as you know, I have shared with you that I wrote this book, Online Dating Success Secrets, how to find true lasting love, dump the love duds. And really that was a result, although I don't use a lot of EFT tapping in there, but it was a result of also clearing my own wounds towards men and the resentment I'd had towards my father. And then finding some lighthearted ways of saying, what don't I want in a partner and what do I want? And then saying, but even if I don't have a partner, I'm fine. I'm going to marry myself, so to speak. And that was a cartoon I saw with a woman in a bridal dress saying to her friend, well, I wanted someone who was caring, compassionate, and who would always be there for me. So she said, I'm going to marry myself. I
find with women that whole, unless we consciously choose to be better and to clear those wounds and to clear those and to be a conscious part of your own healing, you will attract the same kind of man. You will attract the same triggers, and you will. And then there's the instance of there's the blame. Oh, he's just like so-and-so. Oh, here's another one that's like this.
They're all like that. Don't forget we have this pattern. And so many people come to me and as EFT or as coaches, and they say, but it's true. Everyone's like that. All the men I've dated are like that. And they don't realize that it's because they haven't shifted inside, something in them, which will change that pattern. And, but that's our job as coaches and practitioners to point the way that it's, but as you said, and I want to emphasize that it's not easy peasy. It can be quite self-confronting. Do you agree? Tell us about that. Yeah. And where does EFT come into this picture?
So I was a coach by 2009. I met this gorgeous, beautiful woman who lives on the other side of Australia. And we went through coaching college together, and she was an absolute advocate of this weirdo stuff where you tapped on your own body. And she'd ring me and she'd talk to me. I think, oh God, not again. And she just seemed so passionate about this weird thing about tapping on your body, and I'd roll my eyes at her. Eventually I traveled to the other side of Australia. I spent a weekend with her, and she said, right, captive audience, I will be the coach, and I want you to sit, be quiet, and I want you to feel this. And she did a session on me with some stuff around my dad, and I was absolutely hooked. That was it. I was just like, this is amazing to feel so differently about that particular thing with my dad at the time. He was still alive. But yeah, it was like, whew, couldn't get certified quick enough. I'm on Google trying to find a practitioner, trying to find a teacher, a trainer, anyone here in Sydney or here in Australia that I could train with now. I didn't want to wait. I wanted now.
It's interesting because I had the same thing when I tried a bit of tapping. I was a journey therapist, and someone was coming to South Africa to be promoted as an EFT practitioner. I thought, well, I'll do it because I'm a promoter of alternative therapies, but I can't see, I've tried it, I can't see how it can be an in-depth healing protocol. until the person came out and I experienced my first a tapping session around something. And then it also blew my mind, and then when I used it in a session, I saw the shift, which was the first person, he was a business executive. And I said, well, you're late for your appointment, but can I try this tapping thing? So it's amazing how the feeling in the body, that's different from a feeling and talking about something. Tell us about that in terms of your own journey of moving, to the point where you could write your book.
For me, it was, I said, doing a lot of work with healing the stuff with my dad. And not that my dad did anything to me other than my mum died. He went off to the pub, never came out of the pub. That was since 1983. He gets to 80, goodness knows how. He met another woman and he remarried. So thank goodness my gorgeous stepmom who looked after him, so I didn't have to.
Yeah, that's
But it was grateful to her. I don't tell her quite so directly why I'm so grateful that she put up with all the rubbish that I didn't. But it was getting tapping and then journaling and being prepared to look at stuff that was a little bit deeper than where I was happy to go, and doing consciously of, okay, today I will do tapping on this. Today I'll actually clear this. Or I'm going to book a session with somebody. This is the stuff I'm going to tell them I want to work on and see what comes up.
Yes, that's a good point. And I think we have talked about it before. The difference between self-doing it, self-soothing, and having someone stand as your supportive coach or partner in the tapping session. I talk about the Uden moment that we had when we had no resources. It was unexpected, dramatic, isolating. From your point of view, when is it okay to do it on yourself and when should you look for help? And now, an announcement from Break Free Fast Publishing, today's sponsor. Everything you ever needed to know about EFT tapping, with special case studies gleaned from my more than 20 years as an emotional freedom techniques therapist and energy psychology expert, is packed into this book. You can break free fast EFT tapping. 3 simple steps to get unstuck and attract the life you love, with a foreword by Dr. Joe Vitale and a special bonus in the updated second edition entitled Power Boost, the Law of Attraction with EFT Tapping and Matrix Reimprinting. And now, back to today's guest.
We all advocate that tapping started with using it on yourself. We all know that. But the human brain, I know, is designed to keep us safe. So all those little stories and all the little tricky stuff and all the little upsetting stuff is all packed away nicely. When we do tapping, or when I do tapping on myself, I know when I get to a certain point where it gets a little bit uncomfortable or difficult, suddenly my phone becomes very important. Making a cup of tea becomes very important. Anything other than being here and dealing with this becomes very important, because our brains are going like, I am out of here. You sit with a practitioner, they're going to hold the space and hold you there in that place to allow you to safely move that. And that's what you want in a practitioner. You want somebody who cares enough about you to actually not let you squirm away, but to hold you in a safe space so you can process it once and for all. So it doesn't continue to be this recurring thing. Take you to the space, talk about what's going on, do the tapping on it, allow them to help you go deep on what it is, to clear it at its most root level, allows it then to be gone, versus I'll muck around with it on the surface myself and I'll delve a little bit into it, then I'll come back out. That's, to me, where a practitioner really holds their own, is taking you deep in that topic when you can't quite get there yourself.
Yes. So that's a good tip. When it came to you starting the Australian Tapping Institute, tell us how you stepped into the power of being a CEO and what you love about it.
The Australian Tapping Institute came about because I wanted an EFT practitioner to help me through the tail end of my divorce. And in Australia, I couldn't find anyone. I couldn't find a practitioner. I was very fussy because I was already coach trained, NLP, what they needed to be able to do and their goals and all the rest of it. And I couldn't find anyone. So I thought, if I can't find them, maybe no one else can find them. How do I grow my own? Take what I know and what I've learned with my coaching, NLP and EFT. How do I combine it to create this modality for people to go, let's go heal the world. Let's go help as many people as we can with this. So I started the Tapping Institute at my dining room table, and I used to train people live. And then when my husband moved out of it, and he said, I'm taking everything out of the lounge room. I thought, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to turn that into a training space. So I kitted it out as a training room. Best idea we ever had. We did that for about 2 years, and then I started to get itchy about the online space. I didn't want to have to go and do a roadshow around Australia. I didn't want to have to go and book all the venues of places I didn't know. And I thought, how can I do it online? How can I emulate all of what we do live into an online space? So I did. So by 2019, I was hybrid, flying for a couple of days. And that was the other thing. People were flying in from all over Australia to hang out at my house. How do I do it different? So in 2019, we were hybrid online. By 2020, I was completely online. I could do everything, beginners calls, networking, every part of the business we could do online.
So let me stop you there. We know
what happened to 2020.
I want to continue with that, but how did you move to make it such a success for the people learning?
I looked at what were the not negotiables, what were the base not negotiables that had to happen. They had to connect, so they had to create community. I had to create a space where they could all come in and chat to one another, just like they do in a normal room. And what did that look like? So that I really looked at those. What does the online space look like? What does the training look like? How do we bring them together? So instead of doing 3 days in a room, I did a whole lot of pre-recorded. And then we do a whole lot of live classes every month. And we bring people together 3-4 times a month in a room where they all get to know each other and they all chat.
Okay.
We also have a space, we create the practice groups for them as well, so that we stick them in a little community of 3, so we already give them that sense of belonging.
Yes.
So for me, it was, what are the not negotiables? If I had to go and take us out of live and not be physical contact with each other, what are the minimums? So I have 2 EFT courses. So I have a practitioner of EFT, which is our standard curriculum that's been provided by EFT Universe. That clinical EFT, we have a full curriculum that's just EFT. My advanced EFT is EFT, life coaching, NLP, all blended together. So that's when it became advanced EFT and advanced life coaching. Yes. So that's one product. And then there's the people who just want the EFT component, there is that as well. The driving force for me, honestly, is freedom. The freedom to travel where I want, when I want. I have 4 values that I have in life: freedom, determined, playful, and passionate. If they're not ticking those boxes, I'm generally quite unsatisfied with the whole arrangement. But the fact that I've got one of my children lives interstate, one of them lives overseas, my driver has always been about, I want to be able to pick up that laptop and work from wherever I want in the world.
What do you consider your superpower?
Probably my determination. As I said, I'm a sassy little thing. I sit at like 5'3", and I'm very much just get the beep out of my way. When I get an idea in my head and I decide that's what I want to do, I'm usually fairly dogmatic in terms of make it happen. And it's always there's got to be a way. There has to be a way to figure every single thing out, figure it out.
Tell us about the process for writing your first book and how you would proceed with another one if you wanted to write a second one.
So I originally scoped this book in 2013, and I got to 2021 and it still wasn't written, but I still had all the scoping documents of what it was going to be, and just decided I was going to take some extended leave from the job that I had been in at the time, the corporate job, and just knew that I wanted to write my story. Now, also remember, I had by this stage done a lot of healing work on those masculine wounds, a lot of healing on, I was no longer the victim. He no longer did anything to me. They didn't do anything to me. I'd really healed an awful lot of that stuff by that stage. I was thankful at the time of writing the book. I met another man who just was trigger after trigger after trigger, and it was fabulous because all of that helped to frame the book and for me to sit and go, you actually have healed that. That actually isn't the trigger that it would have been. There's no anger here. It's less more of a, yep, okay, I see he's doing that, and that's fine. I wrote my book in, I think it was about 3.5 weeks. 3.5 weeks is all it took me to write it. I had scoped the chapters and had a bit of an idea what I wanted it to be about. I then did some work with a guy here in Australia, Dave, and looked at how I'd mapped, looked at my chapters, looked at some sub-chapters, and then he goes, so go right to the chapter. So I spent these 3.5 weeks just writing and writing. I love writing. I'm a very prolific writer. I did share with you. Am I allowed to share my secret on your podcast?
Yes, I didn't want to ask you. It's your secret to share.
My hobby is to write erotic literature. Okay. I have a very, very vivid imagination, and I write for women about women. So very much stories that are, very wordy and lead up to it. And there's more than, 3 lines before you get the whole thing happening. And I do that. That's my creative outlet.
But tell us, you haven't published them. So what is this something you would consider doing next? Definitely
want to publish them. So what I actually do is if I meet a particular man, and, every person you meet has a particular style about them and a particular mannerism about them. And my main character is called Julia Jane. And the stories are about how each of these men interact with Julia Jane.
Well, I want to tell you something. When I was online dating many years ago, and I've actually done a little course, which is I haven't put out there, on how to write an engaging, attractive dating profile. All I can tell you is if you put that in your dating profile, I don't think you'll get the wrong people, but it will show that you're a woman down to the core. Maybe that is your next project. If not, you have also confided to me you want to write a book about maybe EFT tapping or coaching.
Yes.
What would be an alternative, a second book for you?
I guess my second book will be, I think from my heart, it needs to be an EFT book of some description. This book has hardly any to no tapping in it, because that was never the intention. It was a passion project that I wanted to write an empowerment book for women to really get them out of their rut. I think an EFT book, but writing the erotic stories, that is very much a project that I will publish at some stage. I guess I just hadn't got there yet. Maybe you and I can talk offline about that.
Yeah. At the minute I heard it, I thought she's got something there, and it was writing the books inside her without even realizing she was going to publish them.
I have been writing that adult stories. I used to write many, many, many years ago. I used to submit letters to Penthouse Stories.
Yes.
I don't know if you know pen like Playboy. I used to write for them because my husband would buy them and I'd read them and go, those stories are crap. I can write better than that. So I did. And I used to post them into them and get published in those magazines.
Did they publish them? So on your erotic on your backstory, you can say formerly published in Penthouse magazine.
Because I just thought the stories they were all written by men and they were absolute rubbish.
Taking back your personal power, I think you call it.
Oh, and that my meditation on the train.
Afterwards, we can then close with how tapping can help people, maybe with their books, which is what as a tapping book coach, I just believe it's a tool that can help you get that book out of your head and into your hands.
Love that your program helps people with that imposter syndrome, with that, who am I to write a book? And to me, the world needs all of our books. So, yeah.
That was the other thing I want to say, because it's actually a self-development journey, writing your book, whatever it is. And very much. And you grow through it. But tell us the exercise that you recommend.
So this is the Taking Back Your Personal Power. I was sitting on a city-bound train in Sydney. I had about 40 minutes on the train, and I'd recently been transferred into an office, so I had to catch this train. So to make it something that was okay, I had to reframe it all for myself. So I've decided this day I'm going to go into this meditation. I'd just meditate on the train. And this particular day, I seemed to drift myself into wanting to get back my personal power from these men I had dated over all these years. And in this meditation, my personal power to me looks like a clear crystal with a bit of blue in it. And I've literally lined them up in this meditation and just said to them, give it back, quite bold, give it back. So even people I had been maybe partly afraid of when I was dating, give it back. And I made them put their hands out, and I would walk along and collect this little bit of what I called personal power. It was just this little crystal. And this one particular man who'd been bane of my life for years refused. And in this meditation, I'm standing in front of him and I say to him, I will wrestle you to the ground if you don't hand it back. And he refused. So I did. I wrestled him to the ground and I got my personal power back off him, took it back, stood up, dusted myself off and said to the next one, what about you? And he put his hand out and said, here you go.
Are you saying that in the meditation, you realized that you had pieces of yourself, almost in a shamanic way, that had split off and they were still, you were giving them the power to keep holding that part of you. And your intention was to ask them, but to actually take it back, and in one case, wrestle them to the ground. Okay.
Yeah, it was part of this cutting cords with them and taking everything back of what have you got in terms of my energy was probably a better way to put it. But to make it tangible, I turned it into a crystal. Put your hand out, let me take it back, it's mine. And to be able to cut cords with all of them, one big meditation, which lasted probably about 15 minutes.
Fantastic. When I came across that in your book, I thought we must share that because it's something anyone can do. And it's got a little bit of humor in it, which I like. I think it always lightens things. Just instead of saying, gritting my teeth to get my power back, you don't. And that's the nice thing about tapping. It just does lighten the struggle to do things. So
and I think every woman who's been involved with any men, even women in their life, go back and get the little bits of yourself that you left behind. We all leave little bits when we try too hard and we give ourselves and blah, blah, blah. Go and get them back. That was very cathartic for me and very empowering for me.
Where can people find you?
So obviously we have our website, which is australiantappinginstitute.com.au for Australia. So that is a website. You can jump onto our mailing list from there. We've got a bunch of free things on there. We've, of course, got Instagram with the same handle, Facebook with the same handle, where we have a lot of free content on there, whether it's a handout or a meditation, bunch of free stuff on there if you want to come and connect with us. We do have a private group as well.
So it's Australian, just Australian Tapping Institute.com. So it's .com.au. Something to remember. Tell us the name of your book again.
Thank God He's Gone. It's a smart woman's guide to getting back your personal power, reclaim your confidence. And let me tell you, as a single woman, I have to justify this title on a regular basis when I'm dating to go, it's not about men, doesn't bag out men. It's a personal empowerment book for women. The title sassy, the front cover's sassy. It simply speaks to my target audience because every woman, no matter what, has at some point in time gone, thank God he's gone.
Yeah. So thank you. And we'll meet again, maybe do a further work together. I'd love to keep this going.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining me on today's podcast. Want a free gift to inspire you further on your book writing adventure? My free checklist, 5 book hook tips to kickstart your book writing journey, will help you get clarity on the key essentials to make your book a winner. Download it at writethebookinsideyou.com/free gift. The links are in the show notes. Until next time, a big virtual hug and keep writing.